Before the lightsaber, before the Republic, before the first Jedi ever fell to the dark side, there was a king. He was a giant among his people, charcoal-skinned and encased in spiked ebon armor. With a massive, alchemically forged battle axe in hand, he did the impossible. He united the warring tribes of Korriban and stood defiant against the greatest empire the galaxy had ever seen. This is the legend of King Adaz, the original Sith'ari. Greetings, my fellow scruffy-looking Nerf Herders, and welcome back to the Infernal Brotherhood. When we talk about Sith Lords, names like Sidious, Bane, or Ajunta Pall usually come to mind. But nearly 28,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, long before the Jedi exiles reached the Outer Rim, the Sith were already a thriving, brutal civilization. At the center of that civilization was one man, King Adaz. Today we go back to the reign of the Axe to explore the life of the Charcoal King, his bloody unification of Korriban, and the prophecy he left behind that would haunt the Sith for 28 millennia. Adaz was born different. While his people were traditionally red-skinned, Adaz was born with charcoal black skin. In Sith culture, this was seen as a sign of divine selection. He wasn't just a warrior, he was a prodigy of Sith sorcery. He grew to a massive size, far larger than the average Sith, and encased himself in heavy black spiked armor. Around 28,000 BBY, Adaz began a series of bloody unification wars. Using his oversized battle axe, a weapon forged through alchemy, he crushed the disparate nations and tribes of Korriban. For 300 years, he ruled as the undisputed God King. This era became known as the Reign of the Axe. The peace of Adaz's reign was interrupted when the Rakata of the Infinite Empire arrived. At first, the Rakata tried to be clever. They saw Adaz's power and tried to tame him by teaching him their technology, specifically the creation of holocrons. Adaz listened, he learned, he even created his own holocron. But he wasn't a fool. He realized the Rakata didn't come as teachers, they came as conquerors. When the Infinite Empire eventually dropped the mask and attempted to enslave Korriban, Adaz gave them the only answer he knew: his axe. Adaz led his people in a vehement defense. He personally cut down dozens of Rakatan warriors, captured their starships, and turned their own force-based technology against them. The Sith didn't just drive the Rakata off Korriban, they pushed them back to worlds like Ziost, Malachor V, and Tund. But victory came at a high price. In the final push to secure his people's freedom, King Adaz perished. He had saved the Sith from extinction, but in doing so, he left a vacuum that could never be filled. Because Adaz had ruled for 3 centuries and seemed invincible, his death shattered the Sith's stability. Korriban devolved into civil war as dozens of lesser lords tried to claim his title. Out of this chaos, the legend of the Sith'ari was born, the perfect being who would lead the Sith, destroy them, and make them stronger than ever. While some priests believed the prophecy began and ended with Adaz, others waited. Thousands of years later, when the Jedi exiles like Ajunta Pall arrived, they were viewed as the bloody heirs to Adaz's throne. Even Darth Bane and Darth Sidious would eventually claim the mantle of the Sith'ari that Adaz had first established. Adaz's physical body died, but his teachings lived on in his holocron. This device, passed from the Sith to the Jedi exiles, was lost during the Great Hyperspace War and was eventually found by Frida Nad, who used it to conquer Onderon. It even crossed paths with Obi-Wan Kenobi and eventually the Dark Lady Lamaya. Adaz's influence was so potent that even as a recorded essence, he would refuse to teach anyone he deemed weak. King Adaz is the reason the Sith look the way they do. He set the template for the armored Dark Lord, the absolute monarch, and the sorcerer king. He was a hero to his people and a nightmare to his enemies. A man who drank the blood soup of his rivals to honor their deaths. If you enjoyed this trip into the deepest reaches of Sith history, hit that like button and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, do you think Adaz was the true Sith'ari, or was that title always meant for Darth Bane? Thank you to my creator patrons Aaron Hardy and D. Robert Handy, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of our YouTube members. Until we convene again, my fellow scruffy-looking Nerf Herders, may the Force be with you.